Welcome to the second Chat Tea with Buxani Care. Our topic today is bullying. If you like our videos and you want more information with videos like that, please subscribe to our channel. Let me start by introducing our team. Katie, licensed mental health therapist. Melissa, licensed mental health therapist. And Giovanni, licensed mental health therapist. And I am Dr. Buxani, also a licensed mental health therapist. And we all are Buxani Care.
So today I'm so glad that you all are here, and we're gonna talk a little bit about bullying to kind of bring some awareness, some attention to what bullying is. We're gonna talk a little bit as well about, what are some of the signs of bullying, what can we do to help, and specifically what our area of expertise is, how therapy can help.
Of course. Giovanni, you brought this up. I remember we were sitting together and you brought this up and said, hey, Rashna, we need to do this on bullying. And it was an incident that happened that kind of spurred this whole thing. You want to mention, because that was kind of what got the ball rolling on this topic.
I mean, as a professional and then a mom of four, all the things that we're seeing in the media is really concerning. I think it's something for us to really get out there to people. Topics that we need to be talking about. And so I think that's why, as a practice, I said we really need to have this conversation for individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And being a mom of four.
Yes. Yeah. It starts early.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And I think obviously we both are there. They're kind of heading in that direction. So yes, it's important for our kids. But let's
let's talk about what are some of the signs of bullying that, as a parent or as an adult, being around children or adolescents, that you might see.
Definitely isolation, like withdrawing.
Yeah.
Also maybe like a refusal to go to school, or even like maybe where the setting that bullying is actually happening, because it can happen in places other than school.
Yeah.
Anywhere that children gather or people gather as a group, it is possible to take place.
Yeah, I think, not expecting that your child right away is going to come to you and say, oh, I'm being bullied, but they might say, oh, I have a headache, I have a stomach ache.
Always a stomach. And you know
excuse.
why though? Why it's just a stomach, right? Because serotonin sits in our gut. So every time there's a imbalance, that's where we feel it, which is where kids feel it too, right? So so yes, that I think is such a huge indication of, okay, there's something not right going on at school. I would say also maybe obviously we see the anxious behaviors and stuff, but also receiving information from the school, right? Like behavior issues in the school.
Oh yes.
When the teachers start telling us as parents that, hey, your child is not being able to focus or getting into behavior issues or attention seeking in school, that could be an indication too.
Or even emotional.
Yeah, it's
the
emotional
other
attention.
end too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the role of parents in this whole thing, obviously the school has to do, and I'm saying school because that's kind of where it happens a lot, but now we have cyberbullying too, so it really goes beyond that school setting. I think our time was easier because we could cut off after we came back from school. I don't think the kids can do that anymore. So it really goes on. But I think the role of parents then becomes so important.
I think it starts at home. We have to model that behavior for them.
Yeah, because bullying can be, physically bullying the person, hitting them, pushing them, punching them. It can be emotional bullying, psychological bullying, and as you mentioned, right, cyberbullying, which has become such a problem. So definitely for parents, that's where being able to monitor and supervise what your child is being exposed to online, just as much as you monitor and supervise where they are physically.
Correct. But how about we come up with some ideas of what we kind of because we all work with kids who get bullied at some point or the other, and we work with those families. So what are some of the pointers that I guess we are giving parents when their children are maybe victims of bullying, right? So I know I always tell parents the first thing they have to do is be involved in their children's lives, right?
Sure.
Because if you don't know, you cannot really do anything to help.
Yeah.
So, I need to know what's going on in my child's life to be able to do anything to help. So keep those channels of communication open.
Yeah.
What else are we telling parents? Like, what are you guys telling the parents when?
Help your child develop healthy coping skills, for these feelings, for these experiences, along with helping them remember their self-worth, because if they are experiencing bullying, they probably don't feel very great about themselves. So really helping to boost that is a really important role for parents.
I think as parents, you can also play a role in helping them know how to respond, right? Using humor, using assertiveness, being confident, so that when the child is in that situation, they are not lost and scared and not knowing how to respond. But being able to even practice and say, okay, well, what would you say if I was a bully? What would you tell me, right? And role playing those situations with them, teaching them to have strong eye contact, right? Because bullies aren't gonna like that. They expect
Submissiveness.
submissiveness, meekness.
Crumple into a little ball.
Of course, of course. Giovanni, what are you telling? I mean, I know that the younger two are really young, but
Well,
the older two.
I completely agree. Whether it's a client or it's my two older ones, it's definitely assertiveness.
Yeah.
That's definitely key, communication. And it's not just telling, but I think role play is huge. And it's always interesting to see how a client will change in a session when they're role playing, right?
Yes.
Like giving them a script and seeing like another personality come out, or even like with your kid at home, you give them like a situation, like what if a kid tells you this or that, like what are you gonna say? And then they kind of like get into like this little like sassy mood or whatever, and you're like, okay, like they're fine.
Yeah, of course.
So that kind of comes out, and it's good for them to practice that and know it's okay to be a little bit sassier, to be a little bit, well, they say sassy, but like for
Yes,
really
of
to be
course.
like assertive, like that's okay.
Absolutely.
You are allowed to
Absolutely.
stand up for yourself. And
Absolutely.
it's not mean, but they're allowed to have a voice
Absolutely.
and not get in trouble for that, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times, and I have girls, but I think a lot of times they get scared like they're gonna get in trouble, right? And so they don't say anything.
Correct.
And
So-
they allow the behavior, because they're like, well,
Of
mommy, I don't
course.
wanna get in trouble. Or I'll hear it in session, and they'll be like, well, I don't wanna get in trouble. And I'm like, well, you have to have the confidence and the
Correct.
ability to communicate and advocate for yourself.
Of course. And also because, gone are those days where we could tell kids, go and tell your teacher, because really, I don't think, either the stress load or whatever it is, but it's not the same where you can actually go and tell a school personnel and expect that person to do something about it. It's funny, my son so he's 10, and he recently, because girls can bully boys, right? Just as much as and girls are very sarcastic and passive aggressive in their bullying. So one of the girls came and told him something to the effect of, oh, you're stupid, or something to that effect, and he absolutely used humor. He turned around and said, yes, I am. And then, you didn't know that? And she didn't know what to say. She turned right around and walked away, and it's like, good for you. Of course, I went on to say, you don't really believe that. And he's like, no, mom, I don't. And I think that was, so to have that, but also I think it comes from a place of self-confidence. So I think we as parents, we as, therapists, we as community need to encourage children to build their self-confidence, right? Because if the child is confident, then all these things, whether it's humor, whether it's being assertive, all of that kind of comes a little naturally to the kids. You agree?
And I think it might still hurt, but they can overcome it.
Correct.
It's not going to be as hard.
Devastating.
What I would also say to parents is that sometimes it can feel like the teachers are so overburdened, right? They have been trying to teach throughout a pandemic virtually, in person, and so there's been a lot of changes in the schools, and that has had an effect on everyone, including the teachers. But I think it's important for parents to know that the schools do have a legal obligation to follow up on bullying. So if it is some sort of severe, repeated bullying where none of these techniques are really working and it's escalating, then it's important for parents to, you know, if the teacher is overburdened and they're not able to communicate with the teacher, reach out to the counselor, right? Ask for a parent-teacher conference, talk to the assistant principal or the principal. There's always something that you can do to support your child. And the other thing I would say to parents is that probably one of the most important things is that when your child does share something with you, really try to control your reaction.
Yeah.
Because you might feel so upset and so frustrated and so angry that your child's in this situation, but at that moment what your child is looking for is calmness,
Correct.
steadiness, and
groundedness.
groundedness,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
being able to
Yes.
assure them
Although inside
everything's
you're
gonna be
feeling like,
okay.
yeah, I'm going to go kill them. Because you hurt my child. But
Well,
yes, you know, to be able to.
I've also experienced the opposite end, where
Correct.
they're, and I guess we have to really sometimes take what they say with a grain of salt, because their perspective of a situation isn't always what it is, but their feelings sometimes can be very big, right? Because they're small. And so sometimes they will come with a situation where maybe they misunderstood the situation, but it hurts them. And so they come and they think, well, so-and-so said this or so-and-so did that and they hurt me. And so you might get worked up, or you may think that that's really what happened, and maybe that's not exactly what happened.
Correct.
And so kind of, you know, even being there with them with those emotions and understanding that situation was hurtful, but maybe that's not exactly what happened, and navigating even stuff like that. So they understand, you know, social cues and friendships and stuff like that.
Correct.
I think that's also a good point of what can be taught and learned in therapy as well. You know, processing those experiences, those feelings, you know, recognizing, you know, maybe it wasn't so big or maybe it is so big, is really helpful for them to start to be able to identify those things on their own as well, and start to learn how to process those feelings, or even just try to communicate them or express them to their parents when they're struggling to do that. You know, so I feel like therapy can be really helpful
Yeah.
in that area as well.
Yeah. And then I don't know, I don't know if you guys have, but you know, then we've had parents who just minimize the whole thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Like, don't believe
That, yeah, don't believe them, or that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that too, right? So I feel like when we're working with kids, we inevitably then in that case end up working with families, which becomes so important, because really parents are the go-to. So, you know, giving parents those skills through therapy, just as much as we're giving children those skills, is so important. And kind of, you know, that's, you know, that the full circle, right, of what needs to get done, and or what gets done in therapy.
And I think what sometimes happens is that the bully or the bully's parents get left out of this conversation of what is bullying. There's so much focus on the victim, and there's not such a focus on what the bully may or may not be going through. Why are they acting that way? You know, if the parents are even aware. So sometimes the best thing a parent can do if they have that relationship is be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, I heard this is going on. Have you heard anything about this? How can we help our kids get along better? And maybe that child is going through something and no one is aware, and this is their way of acting out.
Absolutely. And I think it's an important point you brought up, because I think parents of the bully need to be made aware, because obviously nobody's born. Children are born with temperaments, but they're not born full-blown bullies, right? So obviously there's something in the environment that's helped kind of create or build that behavior and then maintain that behavior. So from their perspective, being able to understand what that is and kind of alter their ways of parenting, that might help with the bullies' behaviors, because they're just as troubled as the victims are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no one should be left out.
So I think that we've done a really good job today of covering this issue and really getting to understand bullying in detail. What are the different aspects of it? How can therapy help? what can parents do?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being here today,
Yes.
Thank
joining
you.
us for
Thank-
this conversation.
Absolutely, and thank you all. Katie, you want to talk about our channel to end it?
Sure. Please subscribe, comment, like, and share this video if you found any of it to be informational. Also leave a comment for the next topic you'd like to see us talk about.
Thanks.